A century ago, belonging to a yacht club was the ultimate badge of sailing prestige. Now, some of those same clubs cannot survive rising taxes or convince anyone under 60 to join. The median age of members is over 60, and young ownership has dropped by nearly half. How did these influential institutions become vulnerable? And what does their unraveling mean for the future of sailing? The answer starts long before the first dues went unpaid. In 1720, a group of Irish merchants and noblemen gathered on the banks of Cork Harbour to form what would become the Royal Cork Yacht Club, the first of its kind. Their purpose extended far beyond simple recreation. Early yacht clubs served as guardians of local waters, organizing patrols and mock chases meant to sharpen seamanship and defend against piracy. As the decades passed, these gatherings evolved into formal institutions, laying down the first written rules for racing and etiquette. By the early 19th century, clubs like the Royal Yacht Squadron in England and the New York Yacht Club in America had taken root, each shaping the sport's identity in its own way. The New York Yacht Club was founded in 1844 and would go on to host the inaugural America's Cup in 1851, a race that set the standard for international competition and prestige. Membership in these clubs was a mark of social standing. Invitations were extended to aristocrats, industrialists, and prominent merchants, men whose names filled the society pages and whose influence shaped coastal towns. The clubhouse, often perched on prime waterfront real estate, became the center of community life. Regattas were not just sporting events, but grand spectacles, drawing crowds for banquets, dances, and ceremonies that marked the civic calendar. Young sailors learned the ropes through club-sponsored apprenticeships, while families returned each season for rituals that blended tradition with innovation, from the adoption of new sail designs to the codification of fair racing rules. As yachting gained popularity, the need for standardized rules grew urgent. Conflicting local customs threatened the fairness of races, prompting clubs to collaborate on uniform regulations. This culminated in the creation of the International Yacht Racing Union in 1907, now known as World Sailing, which brought order to a sport once governed by local whim. Through these efforts, yacht clubs became more than exclusive circles. They set the tone for sailing culture worldwide, blending competition, education, and social connection into a single institution. The legacy of these early clubs endures, even as the foundations they laid now face new and unfamiliar pressures. Club treasurers now face a dilemma that was unthinkable a generation ago. Membership rosters that once overflowed with aspiring sailors have thinned, and the faces around the table are growing older each year. In many North American and European clubs, the typical member is now well into their late 50s or 60s. Recruitment of younger adults has slowed to a trickle, with some regions reporting a 15 to 20% drop in overall participation since the mid-2010s. Among those under 40, the decline is even steeper. Club officers describe empty junior rooms and a struggle to fill entry-level racing fleets. This demographic shift isn't just a matter of empty chairs at the annual dinner. Fewer members means fewer volunteers to run regattas, maintain facilities, or staff committees. It also means less revenue from dues, events, and food service. Meanwhile, the cost of keeping a club afloat keeps climbing. Waterfront property taxes have surged in many coastal cities, often doubling over a decade as assessors revalue land for luxury development rather than local use. Insurance premiums have climbed as well, driven by storms, rising sea levels, and new liability standards. When a hurricane tears through or a dock reaches the end of its useful life, clubs face capital projects that can't be deferred. Engineering guidelines put the lifespan of most floating docks and piers at 25 to 40 years. Replacing them is a 6 or 7-figure expense, one that can't be covered by shrinking annual surpluses. As costs rise, the burden falls on a dwindling base of older members. Special assessments, once rare, have become common. Some clubs debate selling land. Others raise dues to levels that younger families simply can't afford. The cycle is self-reinforcing. As fees go up and the average age climbs, the club becomes less attractive to new entrants. The result is a slow squeeze, fewer people, bigger bills, and a financial model that no longer adds up. For many treasurers, the question is no longer how to grow, but how long the club can survive without fundamental change. In early 2020, the board of Corinthian Yacht Club faced a decision that would have been unthinkable a generation before. They had to decide whether to sell the club's waterfront property to a commercial marina operator. Years of dwindling membership, rising costs, and a shortage of volunteers had left the club vulnerable. The pandemic only hastened the decline. By the end of the year, the property was sold, joining a wave of historic clubs absorbed by commercial interests. Bayshore Yacht Club, once a staple of the New Jersey coast, closed in 2021 after a final, fractious season. Membership had dropped below the minimum needed to keep the doors open, and the cost of taxes and insurance outpaced what the shrinking dues base could support. Efforts to attract younger members failed, and the junior sailing program, once a point of pride, had faded away. The property was sold for redevelopment as a mixed-use marina and retail site. The closure made clear that closed clubs can no longer assume continuity. At Newport Harbor Yacht Club, a 2018 proposal to raise dues sparked a bitter debate. The Finance Committee warned that without higher fees, urgent repairs and new safety requirements would go unmet. Younger families, already stretched by California's high cost of living, questioned whether membership was still worth the price. Participation in events and regattas dropped, and the club's once lengthy waiting list vanished. Meanwhile, commercial operators like Safe Harbor Marinas expanded rapidly, acquiring dozens of properties nationwide. Their model, slip rentals, on-demand services, and no volunteer obligations, appealed to new boaters who found traditional club life restrictive or outdated. Convenience and flexibility began to replace a sense of exclusive community. The gap between youth sailing programs and adult membership has widened. National retention rates for youth participation are in the low to mid 40% range, but few juniors transition to lifelong sailing or club involvement. Program directors point to academic demands, high costs, and a sense that club traditions no longer resonate. The result is a pipeline that leaks talent at every stage, leaving fewer young adults prepared to lead. Across the country, club boards, marina executives, and program directors now confront the reality that the old model no longer ensures survival. Some yacht clubs are finding ways to thrive by rethinking what it means to belong. The New York Yacht Club's IC-37 charter fleet represents a clear shift from tradition. Instead of expecting members to buy and campaign their own boats, the club owns 20 identical IC-37 boats, available for charter during major regattas, such as the Rolex NYYC Invitational Cup. This model removes the financial barrier that once defined the sport. Teams pay a set fee, sail the same boats, and compete on equal terms. The IC-37 fleet fills quickly, attracting crews of all ages and backgrounds, people who might never have joined under the old system. The focus moves from ownership to skill, and from exclusivity to access. Chicago Yacht Club has taken a different approach, centered on inclusivity and access. Each season, hundreds of youth and high school sailors rotate through club-owned dinghies and keelboats, many from families new to sailing. Adult learn-to-sail sessions, women's regattas, and more relaxed social policies have widened the club's reach. High school and college teams now use the club as a home base, fueling a steady flow of new sailors. The surge in youth and women's participation at major events signals a broader shift in who finds a place at the club. Niche events are also shaping the future. The Women's Offshore Challenge, hosted by established clubs on the Great Lakes and beyond, gives women skippers and crews a dedicated space for true offshore racing. These regattas typically draw 10 to 25 boats and up to 200 sailors per edition, with mentoring and training included. By lowering entry barriers and offering visible leadership roles, these events address the sport's gender and age gaps directly. Clubs that survive share a willingness to adapt, whether by investing in club-owned fleets, opening doors to new communities, or keeping heritage fleets active. The future will likely be a patchwork, with a few large clubs sharing assets, heritage groups maintaining tradition, and many smaller organizations thriving by serving passionate niches. Right now, only 1 in 10 sailors under 40 joins a traditional club. As sailing's future drifts toward new models, the meaning of community on the water is being rewritten in real time. What survives isn't tradition, but adaptability. The tides have changed, and not everyone will return to shore.